seconds.
Is this where the damn drumming and the music kicks in?
Yeah.
What on earth is going on, everybody? Hello and welcome back to On the Pipe podcast. Today is Tuesday, May the 14th, 2024, years after zero. I'm your host, as always, Tyler Shepherdson, and you are joining me just in the nick of time for OTP Tuesday. I want to say thank you guys for being here. Thank you for joining me. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks for listening to the number one source of off-road media in off-road racing. That is On the Pipe podcast. Thanks for being here. Welcome back. We got a lot to talk about, a lot of stuff going on this past weekend. We're mainly going to be talking about round number 7, the return to Powerline Park in St. Clairsville, Ohio. It was an amazing day of racing. There was all sorts of stuff that went on. I'm sure there's some stuff that people are confused about. I'm confused as well. I'm confused mainly about how are we already 7 rounds into this GNCC series. It's like we just got started racing. Now all of a sudden we're 7 rounds in. We're going to round 8 next, and then it's snowshoe, and then it's summer break. I can't believe that there's been 7 rounds of racing already, but here we are, 7 rounds into this series. 5 different winners in 7 different rounds. The racing has been impeccable. It has been a sight to see. Like I said, 5 different winners, 7 different rounds. Only 2 back-to-back winners. Johnny Gerard started out the season going back-to-back at Big Buck and down in Florida. And then leading into this weekend, Stu Baylor was coming off of back-to-back wins. That's one of the main things that we talked about last week on the show is how Stu Baylor was able to, or mainly how big that gap is between first place and third place. Johnny Gerard sick at round number 5 in Tennessee. Johnny Gerard penalized at round 6 up in Indiana. That allowed Stu to gain 18 points in this championship race in 2 weeks. So we saw him down 28 points. He gains 18 points on Johnny in back-to-back race-winning weekends. And now, this past weekend, Stu Baylor would end up 15th place overall. Johnny Gerard just off of the overall win in the number 2 spot. That is a 19-point gap between Jonathan Gerard and Stuart Baylor. So that's one of the main things that we talk about is how big the gaps are in these top 3, 4, 5 positions and how far winning goes. If you can score those 30 points, the ground that you can make up can happen very quickly. And we saw Stuart Baylor cut that gap all the way down to 10 points for the championship lead. And then this past weekend, unfortunate set of circumstances led Stu Baylor to a 15th place finish on the season. Gained some valuable points, but only 6 points compared to Johnny Gerard's 25 points. That is a 19-point gap difference. So those points that Stu worked so hard for in rounds number 5 and 6 get erased all in one round. But that is racing. That's what can happen at any single one of these rounds. Think about Big Buck a couple years ago. Johnny Gerard broke his pelvis. Thad Duvall broke his pelvis. Stuart Baylor broke his neck. There was other injuries that happened in that race, but that is how fast things can change. And hopefully no one catches an injury bug. That is the last thing that we want, especially with racing as tight, as intense, and as competitive as it is right now. But racing is racing, and it's always going to be racing. All it takes is one race. Johnny Gerard could come out to the next race and blow out a clutch, and then all of a sudden finish outside the top 20 and score 0 points, and then Stu goes on to win. That's a 30-point gap. So, although we are 7 rounds in, we still have 6 more rounds to go, and anything can happen in those 6 rounds. I can't believe we are past the halfway point in this season, though. But We got a lot of stuff to talk about, a lot of stuff going on. There was a hard enduro, and when you look across the board, there's races every weekend. There's races. Everyone's racing. They're racing here. We're racing there. They're racing West Coast. They're racing hard enduro. This past weekend, it was the final round of Supercross, and I don't know if that translates into everything or not where industry people will be, but there was really no other racing going on throughout the country, which I thought was pretty odd. There was the River Monster Hard Enduro that took place over this past weekend. I don't know much about it. I think it was in Virginia. But looking through the results, and honestly, I'm surprised that Hard Enduro was the one that we're looking at, because I saw and chalked and hung out with Will Reardon this past weekend, the older brother of Angus Reardon, who is on the Factory Landers KTM 250 team, and we're going to be talking about him here in a little bit. But Will Reardon was out there. Will is a factory gas hard enduro guy. And so when I was looking through results to figure out what went on throughout the weekend, I was like, oh, well, there couldn't have been a hard enduro. Will was at the GNCC. And then I go and look through it, and really there wasn't any, I'm not going to say any, but like all the big name guys weren't there. So I know that there's a hard enduro East and a hard enduro West. I thought everyone raced all of them. It might be split up separately like Supercross, 250 East, 250 West. I'm not sure. That is a good question that I should have probably done research on before I start talking about it on the show. But that's another reason why we need to get more hard enduro people on here. Maybe we'll reach out to Will. Maybe we'll get some other people on here. The guys over at American Hard Enduro, super cool guys. They got a podcast as well. Maybe we can get them on here and learn a little bit more about this sport, because I want to cover it more. But things like this, I open my stupid mouth and all this stupid stuff comes out and none of it makes sense. So I need to know what's going on. I need to be more informed. You know what I mean? You want to know about East Coast racing and GNCC and National Enduro and all the local series over here? I got you. But when it comes to West Coast racing, hard enduro racing, very cool. I like it. Just not as knowledgeable on it. So looking to change that. But when you look through it, the big name guys weren't there. Tristan Hart, Cody Webb, Will Reardon, Ryder LeBlanc, Colton Haker, like all those guys. They weren't at this race, so I'm not sure what the difference was or what the denomination was, but it is part of the U.S. Hard Enduro schedule, and Quinn Wenzel would go out and take the win, and that's why I said I didn't want to say none of the factory guys were there, because there was some big names there. Quinn Wenzel takes the win on that Riehu, which is basically before KTM bought Gas. That last gas model of two-stroke is the Riehu, and I had two of those bikes. That at the time, Gas was sponsoring the Full Gas series, and that's when I was announcing the Full Gas series, the original Full Gas series, back when there was just one Sprint Enduro and no confusion. But yeah, really good bike. And so that's what those Riehus are. So if you've been thinking about them, they're good bikes. I liked it. But anyway, Quinn Wenzel proves that it can be a race-winning machine. He goes out there and gets that overall win. James Flynn aboard, you know what he was on, a Beta racing machine. We talked about Riehu being good bikes. Beta motorcycles are great bikes, and that is why they are the official manufacturer of On the Pipe podcast. They've been family-owned and operated since 1905, and when I mean that, I mean just a few days ago, I talked to the owner of Beta on the phone for over an hour. You know what I mean? Emailed back and forth with him today. And that, I think, is a very good selling point, because look at the accessibility of Beta USA, a family-owned and operated company since 1905. You're not going to get the head of Suzuki on the phone. You're not going to get the head of Kawasaki, Yamaha, Gas, KTM. You're not going to get the head of those places on the phone. And that is one of the cool things about Beta Motorcycles. They pride themselves on being a family-owned and operated company. They manufacture the finest enduro, trials, and dual sport motorcycles that are known for their premium quality and rideability. Head over to betausa.com to get more information on their models and to find a dealer near you to get yours today. That is right. You can order your Beta via the BYOB program. You can build your own Beta, get it sent to your house. You want different parts on it? You can get it on there. You want your suspension done when it comes out of the crate? You can order a Beta with suspension already set up for you. That is how cool it is. BetaUSA.com. You know what I mean? Great bikes. James Flynn proved that. Second place at the River Monster Hard Enduro in up there in Virginia. And then rounding out the overall podium, it was a gas rider of Gage Key getting it done, rounding out that overall podium. And then looking down at fourth place, Nick Farringer was out there on the Sure Taco and got a fourth place finish. And then Sure Taco teammate Logan Bullup would round out the top 5 fastest riders at the River Monster Hard Enduro. So, like I said, there wasn't other races going on, which I thought was kind of surprising. But there was round number 7 of the GNCC series. Before we get to that, I want to let you know that Zach Tussle is bringing you this program in part of Zach Tussle at Raymond James Financial. Zach is a racer and a financial advisor that helps his clients win when it comes to retirement and financial planning. If you or someone you know wants to save and invest for your future, or you're already retired and needs advice for income during retirement, Zach Tussle is always my first recommendation. Go to financialadvisorsdenvernc.com and you can sign up for a free consultation, an appointment, meeting to see what Zach Tussle can do for you. Just let him know you listen to OTP and get her done. You know what I mean? Talked to Zach Tussle earlier today, too. We're going to be doing some media stuff with him coming up in the very near future. So reach out to Zach Tussle and make your money, make money. Save for your future. Speaking of your future is bright with the stars at the top of the off-road racing world. One guy that has not been talked about a whole lot this season, but a guy that made a resurgence and put his name right back in the forefront of everything this past weekend. It is the number 1, the reigning, defending, overall GNCC champion, Craig DeLong. A couple times this year, we saw him take the long way around and not get the results that he was looking for as the defending champion with the number 1 plate. But last round, we saw him ride to the front of the pack and finish in the number 2 spot. And this past weekend, he takes the overall win, gets back in the win column. I believe it's his 3rd race win of his career. Might be the 4th. In the past, this is just a random side note. I don't mean to go off on a tangent, but I did do some random research based off of a post that Caleb Russell's wife, Chandler Russell, made about people wanting Caleb Russell to come back. Caleb Russell retired at 31 years old. Caleb Russell retired, the greatest of all time, the GOAT of the GNCC series. Caleb Russell retired after 8 consecutive GNCC overall champions. He took the all-time win record. He has more race wins than anybody that has ever raced GNCCs. He does not have the most championships, but he very well could have, and that is kind of the point that we're getting at, because when you look at the last 3 seasons of GNCC champions, when you take the champions from their championship years, Ben Kelly won 3 races the year that he won the championship. Jordan Ashburn won 2 races the year that he won the championship. And then last year, Craig DeLong won 3 races, I do believe, on his way to a championship. That would make 8 race wins combined in the last 3 years of GNCC champions. Yes, a couple years ago, Ben Kelly started the season 8-0, but he did not win the championship that year. The champion that year was Jordan Ashburn with 2 race wins. So in the past 3 seasons, the champions have combined for 8 race wins in those championship winning seasons. Caleb Russell, his final year in 2020, won 7 races by his damn self. And when you go back and look at the record books and the amount of races that Caleb won, it is astonishing. When he retired, we did the stats. I don't remember it now, but the percentages of the amount of race wins that he had, it was something insane. Like high 80 percentile of the races Caleb lined up to, he won. And then it was something like in the mid to high 90s of race that he's ended up on the podium. It's insane. But, yeah, that was one thing that just came up about how the last 3 years, the champions combined for 8 total race wins. Caleb Russell, in his last season, sat out 2 of the rounds due to injury, wrapped up the championship early, and in doing that, still won 7 races that year. It's absolutely insane. Ever since then, we have seen so much calamity going on, besides when Ben came out and broke Caleb Russell's consecutive win streak by winning 8 races in a row, then unfortunately suffering a leg and shoulder injury that has had him sidelined pretty much since. He came back for a little bit, but had to go back in for surgery from those pre-existing injuries, and hopefully we'll see him back soon. Saw him this past weekend, didn't get a chance to talk to him, but he has been on the commentary team on the Racer TV broadcast, which has been cool to see him at the races and in the booth talking. So hopefully we will see Ben Kelly back on the bike soon. It'll be the first time that he will ride with the number 530 at a GNCC. Oh, I guess he did last year. I guess he raced a couple races last year. I was about to go on a whole tangent because it would have been since 2018 that he had a 530 on his bike until last year. He raced some races with the 530. So never mind. Forget that I said that. But going back to Craig DeLong, the reigning and defending champion this past weekend, takes the overall win, gets back in the win column, and going into this race, he said that second place in Indiana didn't sit right with him. He was happy with it. But he also said a week and a half ago, so just a couple of days removed from the Hoosier GNCC, Craig DeLong said, I'm going out to the next race, and I'm going to win it. That's what he said a week and a half ago. So for the past week and a half, Craig DeLong has had this exactly in his mind. That's what he was going to do, is come out and win this race, and that is exactly what he did. He made his moves. He got out in front, and he never looked back after that. He got out in front, tried to gap them, and then maintain that distance throughout the rest of the race. Johnny Gerard made up like 40 seconds on the last lap to put it in a charge. I just threw my hard drive off my desk. To put into charge to catch up. Sorry, I had to make sure I didn't break it. Put in a charge to catch up to Craig DeLong in that final lap. One of the things that they were talking about on the podium is Johnny said, it's a good thing Craig and I are good friends and teammates, or I might have been a little bit more aggressive out there. And if that was the case, there was plenty of opportunities where they could have done some bar banging. The Pro Road pits was right before the finish line this past week. When they came through the pits, they were wheel to wheel to wheel, trying to run it up on each other in the corners. Going into Auxiliary Pro Road, there's like a tree at the end of it. Johnny tries to cut in, puts Craig tight into the tree. Craig DeLong, I don't know how he has a nose on his face, but just kind of puts his head to the side. All of them trees/bush limbs brushing straight into his face, about ripped him off the motorcycle, but he still goes straight through the tree and holds on for the race win all the way down to the last couple corners. Johnny Gerard showing in some wheels, getting out beside him, and trying to make it happen. But Craig DeLong would hold on and do what he claimed he was going to do a week and a half ago. We talk about it all the time. Confidence is key, and when you're telling yourself every day for a week and a half that you're going out to win that next race, it's the power of persuasion. You know what I mean? Manifestation. Put it out in the universe, and it's going to happen. Speaking of tight battles, Grant Baylor and Mike Wachowski were locked in a battle for that third-place spot. Grant did what Grant Baylor does. He gets terrible starts. He starts dead last in the back of the pack. Everyone in front of him. How many people are in XC1? That's what place Grant Baylor was off the start. And he does what Grant Baylor does. He starts slowly chugging along and picking people off one by one by one by one by one. Eventually got Mike Wachowski and the overall podium within his sights, was able to make the pass and get it done to round out the overall podium and land Grant Baylor back on the podium once again in this 2024 race season. That is the third podium for the Grizzly of Grant Baylor, which is quite impressive. 3 podiums, 7 rounds. Sure, that one has got to feel good as he goes out there and gets it done. 5th place overall was your XC2 leader, your XC2 winner, your XC2 points leader, and the number 4 spot overall. It was Grant Davis getting it done. He was on fire. He led the overall for portions of the race this past weekend. That is how on it Grant Davis was once again on that 922 machine as he holds on to the white plates and gets 5th place overall out of that XC2 class. But this time it wouldn't come quite as easy because the reigning and defending XC2 champion, the 198, or right now the number 1 of Liam Draper, would put in a tough ride of his own. Liam looked great on the bike this past weekend. He looked like the Liam Draper of 2023. He looked like the Liam Draper that has the number 1 plates on his bike, and he rides his way back up just off of Grant Davis in that number 2 spot in the XC2 class. It was only 3 seconds, which when you come into scoring, anything goes, you know what I mean? In reality, they were wheel to wheel as they came across the line. Our 7th and 8th place riders, they were also locked in a battle. I think things got heated out there between the 739 of Trevor Bollinger and JS7 Josh Strang as they ran it into each other all the way down to the last turn. Josh Strang trying to make the move, just barely unable to get by Trevor Bollinger, so Trevor Bollinger would round out the day. 7th place overall, Josh Strang. A step in the right direction, a big step in the right direction on that Shirtako machine, getting it done. 8th place overall, Josh Strang. This is his 18th year racing professionally in America. Josh Strang is an ISDE world champion. Josh Strang is a GNCC overall champion. Josh Strang is a guy that put together his own program after being a factory guy for all of these years, and he's getting it dialed in. He's making things work, and he goes out there and gets an 8th place finish. So while Josh Strang has all these accomplishments, I'm sure he is not really, actually, truly, deeply satisfied with an 8th place finish, but Josh Strang makes a big step in the right direction to get that 8th place finish this past weekend. It is a solid foundation and a place to build from and go from there. He has unfortunately suffered some freak incidents this past year with mechanical problems due to like crashes and just due to all sorts of random stuff that really didn't quite give him a fair shake at it this season. So for him to go out and get an 8th place finish, wow, he wants to be a podium guy. He wants to prove he can run up there at the front. He ended the season last year with a race win. This is a step in that direction to get back to that spot. Ryder Lafferty, 9th place overall on the day. But that doesn't tell the tale of Ryder Lafferty. Ryder Lafferty was out front. He led portions of this race. He looked really good on the bike. Did not get a chance to talk with him to see what happened, but he goes in the 9th place, still a top 10 finish overall. And then rounding out your top 10 was Gus Reardon, 3rd place in the XC2 class, rounding out the XC2 podium and rounding out your top 10 riders overall. Thad Duvall was all over the rear wheel of Angus Reardon. Thad Duvall was running as far up as into 2nd place, and then I did talk to him after the race, just said he couldn't stay off the ground. And that seemed to be what came from a lot of the riders in the race this past weekend. Ohio dirt is something else. Southern Ohio is the worst thing to happen to the United States of America. I'm just kidding. Sorry. I got a lot of buddies in Ohio. We talked about this. But anyway, we were not in Southern Ohio, but the rain came down Friday. The rain came down most of the day on Saturday. The damage was done. The track was wet. The track was slick. I'm talking about you try to walk across that parking lot and you slip. You try to drive across that parking lot and you're stuck, and they're calling the little bulldozers over to help pull you in and pull you out. That's how bad it was this past weekend. By the time Sunday afternoon happened, the track did honestly shape up way better than I could have ever imagined it. Obviously, there were still some bad spots out there, but it did tack up quite nicely. It did become way better than I think anybody could have anticipated after the weekend that was up in St. Clairsville, Ohio. That being said, it is tough to ride on, and from what I hear, it was very old school type track, flowy, tighter trails, and dealing with the conditions makes it that much harder. There was 3 miles of bike-only section that the quads hadn't hit. The quads had pretty much done everything else, and I think they went in and dozed the first couple miles after the quad race. So a lot of different conditions. You got quad ruts, you got bulldozed areas, you got bike-only fresh trail, and A lot of bikes on it in the morning race and then in the afternoon race as well. But it proved to be a difference maker for a lot of different riders this weekend, Thad Duvall being one of them. Like I said, just saying that he couldn't stay off of the ground, and that ended up being the tale of the day as Thad looked to get another podium in his XC2 campaign going on this year. Lyndon Snodgrass, didn't get a chance to talk to him after the race, 12th place overall. He lost his visor about halfway through the race, so undoubtedly had a get-off there himself. Stu Baylor. I know that is a question that a lot of people have been asking, what happened to Stu, what was going on. I have talked to Stu Baylor, but about business stuff. Whenever there's races like this, like, you want to elaborate? Go ahead, but I'm not going to push the issue. But from what I understand from talking to his team during the race, Stu was challenging for the lead. He was running up front and then ended up having a big crash that twisted up the front of his bike, and from what I understand, maybe bent a wheel, definitely bent the front forks or the front steering stem or front triple clamps or something. They came into the pits. I did see where they had the bike leaned over and just kicking the ever-living snot out of it, trying to get that thing back in whack somehow. But I think he ended up having a couple more bad get-offs throughout the day, resulting in that number 15 spot. No doubt not where he wanted to finish and losing very valuable points in that championship race. But as we mentioned, anything can happen. Literally anything can happen. 6 rounds remaining. Nick DeFeo gets back on top of the top amateur program. A week end of having food poisoning for Nick DeFeo. Wasn't able to keep down food, wasn't able to keep down drinks, but he was able to keep down the 250A class, the 4-stroke A class, the open A class, and every other damn amateur out there on his way back to the top step of the top amateur podium, taking the win in the 250A class. And second place, top am on the day, was Gavin Simon, also had the 250A class, and then Jason Tino rounding out your top am podium. That is going to do it. That is how your results lined up for this past weekend. Brody Johnson and the rest of the Beta boys. Brody would finish 6th place in the XC2 class, and then Jason Lipscomb, the other Beta boy, would end up in the number 7 spot in that XC2 class. Jack Walker lit the first couple laps on fire, let me tell you what. By the time we saw them the first time, Jack Walker was already in the XC2 riders. And then he just kept gaining ground, passing XC2 riders, and then I believe he ended up having an issue with his clutch. So once again, super muddy race. It is even more of a battle on an XC3 bike, a 125 bike that you're dealing with and modulating that clutch so much in those tough and gnarly, muddy conditions. So Jack Walker, like I said, was rolling in that XC3 class and would end up finishing 2nd place on the day. And quite a gap up to Dakota DeVore, though, who would take the XC3 win. So Dakota DeVore in the number 1 spot, Jack Walker in the number 2 spot, and then Sawyer Karatura would round out the XC3 class podium this past weekend. WXC battle was also one to watch as well. Shelby Turner had a great ride going. I think she got stuck or had a crash or something somewhere, fell back from that. That opened up the lanes for Brandy Richards. At the end of the first lap, they only did 3 laps. They were running like 34, 36-minute lap times. They only did 3 laps out there. When they came through at the end of the first lap, which, like I said, that's 36 minutes of racing, it was Brandy Richards out in front. Brandy Richards is a girl that we talked about who is obviously very good at ISDEs. Very, very good at ISDEs. Very, very good at West Coast Racing as she wrapped up all those championships, and she has proven at the ISDE several times, going unbeaten for test wins and day wins on her way to the overall top woman rider in the world. The question has been, how is it going to be when she gets into the northern rounds, when she gets into the mud, into the rocks, into the roots? Will she be able to adapt? I think Brandy Richards came out and put an exclamation mark on that this past weekend, that yes, she can absolutely adapt. She came through in the overall lead. She was battling up front for the majority of this race. But there was a mean old fiery rock star Husqvarna rider of Corey Steed, who has had 2 what looked to be wins taken, rug pulling out from underneath her this year alone. She has ran out of gas on the last lap 2 different times this season at Camp Coker. She ran out of gas, and then at the last round in Indiana at Ironman Raceway, she ran out of gas once again while leading that race. So Corey Steed has a chip on her shoulder. She's got a lot to prove. She is one of the top championship contenders in that class. She goes out and proves it. I believe going into the white flag lap, she was in 4th place overall. She put her head down. She got on the gas, and she didn't get on the gas too much because she finished with gas. I think they actually gave her a splash of gas in this race to make sure she did not run out of gas once again. But she didn't run out of gas. She didn't run out of steam. She ran out of champagne on the podium after she took the WXC class win. She looked stoked, and I was stoked for her as well, just because, like I said, those instances with running out of fuel and then seeing those wins right there. She finally goes out, gets her first win of the 2024 season. Brandy Richards, as we mentioned, rode extremely well in the conditions. She would end the day 2nd place in that WXC class, and then the reigning, defending champion in points leader, Rachel Archer, would hold on to the points lead and hold on to her podium streak as she gets 3rd place in that WXC class. Shelby Turner would come back for a 4th place finish, and then Preston Rains, rounding out your top 5 fastest WXC riders on the weekend. So that is how the weekend went. That is the recap. We talk about Dozers pulling people out. We talk about tough conditions at the race. If you need bulldozer work and you need mud graded, dirt hauled, dirt moved, call DPG. Dimmer's Precision Grading. They are in the greater Charlotte area of North Carolina. They have a ton of equipment. They have a big crew. No job is too big or too small for the boys at DPG. So if you need any type of grading services, gravel, land clearing, anything like that, hauling, call DPG. Go to dimmersprecisiongrading.com. You can get a hold of them that way and get a quote and keep them involved in your next project. Our next project is going to be going to the Mid-East race this weekend. There's going to be back-to-back Mid-East races down in Lawrence, South Carolina. They are literally across the street from each other. So if you're not doing anything, come out and come racing with us, baby. It's going to be a couple good weekends of racing down in there. But hopefully we can get some people lined up and do an interview show tomorrow. Not sure what we have up the sleeve yet, but hopefully we can get something either out tomorrow or Thursday. Love talking to people. Love hearing their stories. Just got to find a way to keep it going and get the people coming back. In the meantime, I appreciate you listening to 30 minutes of me talking to myself, talking to you, because I appreciate you. I appreciate you being a part of On the Pipe podcast. Be a friend. Tell a friend. If somebody doesn't know about On the Pipe podcast, let them know. This is where we get the news, get the information. There's a lot of juicy rumors, juicy rumors going on in the world of off-road. Trying to sort through those right now. You know my deal. You know how I operate. I'm not going to hear something and then come on here and blab about it. I'm going to hear something. I'm going to use that knowledge that I gained to talk to other people to get them to offer up some more information. And then I'll use that information to talk to somebody else to get them to offer up some more information. And once we hear the same thing coming from multiple sources on different sides and different angles, that's when we can pretty much lead to believe that it is true. But then once stories start getting different between the different things, that's when all hell breaks loose and you go back to square one, try to figure out what in the world is going on. That being said, this past weekend, we spent a good bit of time at the Pro Pit Pub. The newly formed Pro Pit Pub. I didn't ask them. there was quite a group out at the Pro Pit Pub this past weekend. It is on Pro Row. We were out there till about 2 o'clock in the morning. There was several people on the sauce. And it was a good time, great time. A lot of people in and out, a lot of people walking by, a lot of people hanging out at the Pro Pit Pub. I'm not going to throw out the information because I don't know if they want the information out there. But it was a great time at the Pro Pit Pub. And a lot of juicy stuff going on in the world of off-road racing. Not only there, but Friday night talking to some people, Sunday morning talking to some people, Saturday evening talking to some people. You know what I mean? There's a lot of stuff. Silly season is already upon us. There's silly season with teams going on. There's all sorts of stuff going on. But we're not going to be the ones that throw out baseless rumors and put it out there. We will be the ones to find out information about what is going on and stuff that people don't want the public to know. And we will tell you that information, but we got to fact check it. We got to go through our sources. We got to figure out that what we're saying is accurate, because the last thing I want to do is lie on a public platform. You know what I mean? The only time I ever did that was about Zach Osborne, and that because it seemed so preposterous that it could not possibly be true. And then when I talked about it on here, I said, this is so preposterous that it could not possibly be true. And then once I said it, I got like 8 different text messages saying, why did you tell everybody about Zacho? And that is how I found out that the Zacho rumor was indeed true. Short-lived. Speaking of short-lived, Jordan Jarvis is off of the AmPro Yamaha team. We talked about her coming into the season. Looked like she was making some progress. Big-time moto girl, won a lot of championships. Came over to race off-road. Never raced off-road before. She made it 6 rounds. She's fired. She's gone. That girl that they brought in, I think it's some ISDE girl. I think she's from New Zealand. She was ripping. But, yeah, Jordan Jarvis out at AmPro Yamaha. Just like Zach Osborne was out at AmPro Yamaha. Just like Lane Michael was out at AmPro Yamaha. Corey Buttrick was out at AmPro Yamaha. You know what I mean? You got to get results over there. But, yeah, fun weekend. We're going to go through some of this stuff. We're going to let you know what is going on. But right now, we just don't have all the information. You know what I mean? But it's a little teaser for next time. And that's the other thing, too, is people are starting to learn my secret. If someone tells me something and they say, hey, here's what I'm doing, please don't tell anybody, then I can't go on the show and tell somebody. You know what I mean? Like Strang going to Sherco. Knew about that months and months and months ago. When we were doing all the silly season stuff, you might have noticed that Strang was the one I always skipped around. And that's because I was directly involved with it, and Strang said, please don't tell anybody. So then I can't tell anybody. You know what I mean? Because these are all my buddies. But if I got to do some digging and I got to find out the information, it's free game. You know what I mean? Because if I got to do some digging and find it out, no one told me not to tell anybody. So there are some people that found out the secret to that, and then they told me. And now since they told me, I do know it to be a fact, but I also can't tell you guys. But when I do some digging, when I do some researching, and I got to find out from multiple sources, it's fair game. And that information's coming at you. So I shouldn't have outed myself on here. Riders, if you got information, don't tell me. Tell everybody else like you usually do, because then I find out that way, and then I don't feel obligated to not tell anybody what's going on. You know what I mean? So, yeah. Anyway, that's business, baby. No, I'm just kidding. I say this, and I am joking, but there is a lot of analyzing that goes into this. You know what I mean? It's tough being the media guy. It's tough being friends with everybody and being the media guy, because I will never break that trust in Tyler Shepardson and On the Pipe podcast. You know what I mean? 2 different people. When I'm there for OTP, I'm there for OTP. Tyler Shepardson is Tyler Shepardson. I'm not going to go out and say stuff that shouldn't be said. There is a lot of stuff that happens that I would never even dream of saying. But stuff as it relates to the public eye, as it relates to racing, that is just sports. That is just journalism. People changing teams changing sponsors, people changing manufacturers. You know what I mean? That's like NFL players getting traded. Public information, you deserve to know it. So I will never tell stuff that doesn't need to be told. But the stuff that does need to be told, we're going to find it out. We're going to get to the bottom of it, and we're all going to find out together. You know what I mean? Because you listen to On the Pipe podcast, the #1 source in off-road racing. And I appreciate you for doing that. Be a friend, tell a friend. Also, tell somebody something nice. If you're listening to this, if you made it to the end of this episode, you're already a very strong person for making it 40 minutes into this dumbass episode. If you did make it this far in, tell somebody something nice today. You know what I mean? Random person, friend, family. Call your mom, tell her. Call your dad, tell him. You know what I mean? Say something nice to somebody. It might change their life. It'll definitely change their day for the better. Like you. You're a beautiful soul, and I appreciate you for listening this far into On the Pipe podcast. This was OTP Tuesday. We're going to try to get another one out at some point this week. Don't hold me to it. I'm sorry. Love you. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.